going to go ahead and get started. Seriously, thank you all for coming out today. Thank you for supporting ATC. We truly appreciate the partnerships. Can't do it without you guys. My name's Doug Nyheisel. I'm with ATC, and my role is the team lead of our Delta team. It's all of our consultants, project managers, and account managers. And today, we got RingCentral in here to speak with you guys. Yep. Doug Schweitzer will be here eventually. No. We have Tony and Aaron. Thank you guys so much. You're not here to hear me talk, so I'm just going to hand over to you.
Appreciate it. So welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you again to the ATC folks for allowing RingCentral to come out and present on a very hot topic, at least over the last 2 to 3 years. So we're going to talk about how can existing Microsoft Teams customers, how can they enhance their experience when it comes around telephony, okay? Before I get into that, there I am, by the way, Aaron Cypher. I come here a little more scrubby, all right? If you overheard my conversation here earlier, I was definitely expecting colder weather, but you guys are warmer here today than it is in Phoenix, so congratulations. So I am a solutions engineer. We heard on the panel, that's just a fancy name for a sales engineer. I have 2 colleagues here. One's in the room right now. The individual who manages our relationship between RingCentral and ATC, Mr. Tony Geller there in the front. And then I do not believe Mr. Doug Switzer's in the room yet, but he's our local representation. So you'll be your Doug? Yeah. You'll be my Doug? Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. But I think we'll be hanging around a little bit afterwards at our little table. I know sometimes coming out of a presentation like this, you might want to see it a little more in action. Because trust me, when I come into an environment like this and I don't control the environment, i.e. the internet's capabilities, I have more of a canned, cycled, quick preview of what it looks like. Okay? There he is. There's Doug. Yep, indeed. So, once again, in the spirit of being as vendor agnostic as possible, I'm going to try my best. All right, we're going to talk more about just the industry as a whole and talk about how companies like RingCentral and others within what we call the UCaaS, or Unified Communications as a Service. That's a mouthful. Maybe better off I'll just say cloud PBX solution. All right, but a lot of times PBX has a negative connotation. You know, all you guys just do voice. No, there's a lot more to it than just voice nowadays. All right, but before I get into the team's discussion, just real quick, we're throwing out the name RingCentral, the company I work for. Does everyone, maybe I should rephrase it a different way. Does anyone not know who RingCentral is? Never heard of them before? Is everyone shy? Oh, by the way, I did bring some gifts, so audience participation is very helpful. I remember that. Excellent. The man in the Xavier shirt, I'll remember that. Okay. All right. So I probably don't need to go into much detail about who RingCentral is. If you're too afraid to ask, then we can talk about it afterwards, okay? But just wanted to throw up our mission statement, and I promise you this will probably be the last slide or two where we talk specifically about RingCentral, all right? But simply put, our goal is to simplify communications for our customers. Any device, anywhere. And when it relates to Microsoft Teams, that kind of falls in line with any device. All right? So the Teams user interface, that's a device to RingCentral. Okay? Whether it's your desktop application, whether it's the Teams mobile app, that's just a device to us. And we're eventually going to get through how we bring a lot more feature functionality to the Teams environment than what Microsoft can provide themselves. Okay? Another question I'll ask before I advance the slides. Let's see if I can get some hands being raised this time. Your organizations, how many of you are pretty much all in now with Teams from a meeting and a messaging perspective? Okay, 50%, good. Now of those same people, are you leveraging the Teams interface for your dial tone, for your voice communications? Coming up. So you're in the middle of exploring options? Okay. So on my next slide, I believe it is, we'll talk about what options are out there. because maybe some of you that are on Teams today and just haven't gone down this path yet of looking at leveraging vendors like RingCentral and others in the industry to complete that Teams solution. All right, well, we're eventually going to get to why you should think, just UCaaS as a whole when you're looking at direct routing with Teams. Okay. Now, hopefully everyone in this room over the last 3 years, you probably experienced one, if not multiple, of these barriers that you encountered. Okay. This is what we do day in and day out, whether you're a Teams customer or not. Okay. So, in the spirit of being agnostic, we'll go right past that. All right. So, to the gentleman in the back who talked about they're exploring voice with Teams right now. A fun fact here, if you did not know this, let's see if this laser pointer works. Yes, it does. A poll done by industry analyst, Mr. Patrick Watson from the Cavell Group, he found out that only 15%, I'll do a little math trickery there for you, okay? So 15% of Teams customers are actually leveraging what Microsoft calls their calling plans, okay? This is where Microsoft is truly providing the dial tone. They're essentially acting like a cloud PBX solution, okay? Only 15%, okay? The remaining 85%, whether they're not using Teams at all for the phone system capability, or they went down a different path, like working with a vendor like us, all the things you see around this blue bubble here are the reasons why. Okay? So, does Teams provide a contact center integration? Or do they provide a contact center solution? No. Do they have global reach? Yes, to a certain degree, but not on par with what you'll see a lot of the UCaaS vendors in the space today provide. Okay, so I don't know if any of you, your organizations, if you have remote offices outside of this local area. If you do, come talk to us. We got a solution for you, all right? Not to dwell on each one of these features up here, but usually where it comes down to is the advanced phone capabilities, okay? I think a lot of people are shocked if they either proof of concept or just trial out the Teams phone system solution. There's a lot of basic features that a lot of companies have come to assume that they're going to get over the many years, okay? Things like, for example, call monitoring. If I'm a supervisor and I want to monitor my agent's call, can't do that. Can I whisper? Can I barge into their call? Now in the year 2023, it's more than just voice. Things like SMS capabilities, faxing capabilities. Can't do that on Microsoft Teams environment, okay? So that's where UCaaS vendors as a whole come in and we enhance that experience. So customers don't need to be stuck on just Teams. Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to say this, but probably most importantly, the uptime too, right?
Yeah. I was already looking at the clock and I was like, I better speed it up here, but definitely reliability. All right, so a lot of the UCaaS vendors in the industry, you'll see them state different levels of SLA. 5 nines, 4 nines. I've heard some ridiculous ones like 100%. Okay. In the spirit of being vendor agnostic, I'll just say, do your due diligence. Look who has a financially backed SLA. Okay. What solutions can prove over not just the last week, but over the last year, over the last multiple years. Show me some statistics about your uptime. Okay. You'll want to do that up front. You don't want to do that after the fact. Okay. All right, so as of today, what are UCaaS vendors typically offering as an integration into Teams? Pretty much boils down to two things, or two options. And the goal here is definitely to provide you, as the customer, the prospective customer, some flexibility. Obviously, you know your organization best. You know how your employees operate. Maybe for those who are, at this point, almost all in with Teams, you've probably invested a lot of time educating your colleagues. Okay, but when you're getting down to the brass tacks of what's important for the business from a telephony perspective, the two options are typically either embedded dialer or direct routing. Now, those who are Teams users today, I'm hoping that a lot of you have heard the term direct routing before. If not, feel free to speak up. Okay. So ever since Teams came about, and this kind of has a long tail going back to the Skype for Business days, all right? But direct routing first started off as Teams is a user interface. Where do I get my dial tone? All right. And going back maybe 3-4 years ago, that's where you were working with existing carriers, PSTN carriers. I forget who the local prevalent one here is in Cincinnati, but the Verizons, the AT&Ts. I have a hard time saying Lumen because to me they're still CenturyLink, okay? But you took that dial tone, that copper connection, or if it was a handoff to the PBX, maybe you were still under contract with them, so just provide a little hardware, a little piece, a gateway, an SBC, all right? And then that was your interface from a Teams environment for your dial tone, okay? The reality was, great, you're providing dial tone, but you're not providing any additional features or functionality. I hate using the word dumb pipe, but I hear it used a lot. It's just a pipe for dial tone. All right, it's not giving you any enhanced features, things that you would expect. No SMS, no faxing, no contact center capabilities. Shout out some additional features if I'm forgetting any, okay? So that was the first iteration of direct routing. A second iteration of it is where UCaaS vendors like us come into play here, where we are essentially providing the dial tone, but we're providing so much more. And you'll see that here momentarily, okay? Option 3, I would say, is Microsoft's calling plans. Once again, them acting as the cloud PBX. You're porting your telephone numbers over to Microsoft. Another one I just thought of that catches people off guard is, do I get unlimited minutes, or do I only get a pooled amount of minutes per user per month? You will experience that with Microsoft and their calling plans. Kind of ridiculous in my mind, but each to their own. Then the fourth option here, it's not technically direct routing, but it's somewhat similar, and that's what they call Operator Connect. So this is, once again, partnerships with our tier 1 carriers in the United States. We'll just use the US as an example. And all that dial tone and that handoff to the Teams environment is done within data centers. It's not on your local premise. You don't need to worry about installing local gateways. Okay? Now, embedded dialer, a lot of vendors in our industry may use a slightly different term to it, but the concept there is, let me advance the slide here because we're going to talk about that first, actually. Embedded dialer, provide an application that's approved by Microsoft. You would find it within the Microsoft App Store. All right, but from there, the IT director, whoever manages the Teams admin center, you load it, you push it out to all the users, and you'll see that here momentarily. But we're going to provide a slightly reduced cost, at least from the Microsoft licensing perspective, when you're looking at embedded dialer. As I call out here between the two, with embedded dialer, we don't need to worry about the Teams add-on phone system license. Okay? It can be E1, you can be E3, excuse me, or any of the equivalents. When you look at a direct routing solution, you may know that you do need to do the phone system add-on license at roughly $8 a user a month. Or you need to make the jump to E5 if you're not already there. Okay? So that's just to provide a dial pad within the Teams user interface. We haven't even gotten to the point yet where, okay, now provide me some dial tone. Okay? Sorry. All right, so what I'm going to do next here, just to kind of highlight what embedded dialer looks like. I call out a couple features, but more importantly, I'm going to give you a preview of what you're going to see on the screen, because when I click the button to advance, you're going to see a little animated 30-second demo here. But some things to call out, whether it's embedded dialer or we'll get to direct routing, we will be providing some of those additional features. SMS again, faxing again. I didn't touch on analytics yet, but the ability to go into a portal and be able to get good metrics on every call that's placed on the account. You know, if so-and-so within the organization is complaining constantly about their call quality, but no one else is, well, we provide some analytics tools, and others in the industry do as well. We think we do it best. All right, but you can go in there and see, oh, yeah, I can see you were on Wi-Fi, you were using your mobile device to place the call, and why it's only happening to you, that can kind of help us or steer us in the right direction to troubleshoot what the issue is, okay? But what you're gonna see here, I'm in the Teams UI. There is our version of an embedded dialer hiding right there. We provide a dial pad, and what you're gonna see is you're gonna see me type in my name. So I'm searching either out of the directory, or I'm using AD integration to find my contacts. I'm going to go ahead and place the call, and then you're going to see something pop up in the top right-hand corner, and that will be our application. It's not the Teams interface. This is a RingCentral application, okay? And once I play that out, I'll explain, why that is. So, searching my name, go ahead and place in a call. There's our RingCentral application right here, and that's where I will manage the call. That's where my audio is occurring, okay, through that application, okay? Just showing you some mid-call features, hold, transfer, conference. In an embedded dialer solution, the UCaaS vendor will typically play the role of voicemail server. I was also showing some call recordings. There's some of my SMS history, and there's some faxing capabilities or interface. So, I forgot that it keeps circling around or looping. So a lot of people, the first thing that catches their attention is, you're launching a different application. You're not staying within the Teams user interface. That is correct. There's give and take here right now. Are you okay with this experience without having to pay the extra phone system license to Microsoft or making the jump to E5? We find that a lot of our customers are okay with that. They feel that we can train the users on how this looks. Okay, very small interface that you saw pop up over there. Okay? Any questions on what you're seeing right here? Okay? Now, I can't help myself but saying this. I would love to share with you all what the immediate roadmap looks like with this, but I can't, because I would need each and every one of you to execute a non-disclosure agreement, okay? The good news is, if you're intrigued by what you hear today, absolutely reach out to the folks at ATC, and then we could potentially set up a one-on-one type session, a demo, or a discussion around what this will look like in the future. I promise you it is even a more improved experience than what you're seeing right here. Okay?
And what's the cost for the embedded dialer to RingCentral?
I didn't even give him these softball questions, but thank you for asking that. Nothing extra from RingCentral. Okay?
So if you're already using it, you already have access to this for free.
Yeah. Now let's clarify. I am an SE, so a lot of times I can't help but being very, very truthful. Yes, there is a cost for the RingCentral solution per user per month, but there's no added cost on top of that to get this type of functionality within Teams. Okay? That is one way that we like to differentiate ourselves versus competition.
Maybe you're going to get to this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already paying for Teams through Microsoft.
Yes.
I need to understand what's the value of me going to RingCentral or something like that.
Yeah.
Other than just upping my Teams. It seems like you're adding on to Teams and paying more costs on top of that. So that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I don't have an actual slide that kind of compares and contrasts the two, but just remember, today, are you on E1 or E3?
Yeah.
You don't have the phone system? Today, at least. You don't have that add-on license?
You don't have the phone system? Sorry.
The phone system add-on license within Teams.
No, not yet. We're considering it because we have currently the VIA
Right.
R10, we're going to get rid of it, UCaaS or whatever.
Yeah.
Prem-Based. But then we're going to do the CCaaS solution.
Yeah.
We're going to do the UCaaS solution. We're looking at Teams, and I don't understand. I'm already going to pay for that license. Then this would be asking me for another set of licenses. I was going to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and feel free to chime in, Doug. I know you have a lot of experience in the field. Yeah.
The two Dougs are like wanting to jump into their sales shoes.
Yeah.
There's like a lot that will go into determining what will be the right fit for you, size of your organization, how calls are coming in, are you doing hump groups, call queuing. A lot of that stuff is very, very difficult to do within Teams, and there's a huge reliability component. Teams is struggling to manage 3 nines of uptime on the voice. So if voice is important to your organization, if a day of downtime during the year is okay, Teams voice might work for you. Where most other UCaaS providers, we don't even have 5 minutes of downtime the entire year. So there's a lot of different things that go into it, and I would definitely recommend digging in with one of the ETC guys on what's important for you in your organization, because every organization is a little bit differently. When we looked up here earlier, the reason 85% of companies use somebody like a RingCentral or any other UCaaS provider is quite frankly because of reliability within Teams voice. It's been 5 years and they've been saying they're going to get to 4 nines of reliability, and they're still at less than 3. So when you look at those types of things, it's really important to understand what your voice needs are for your organization, who manages that for you, because managing call queues, call routing, home groups, analytics is super, super easy for the guys that's all they do, is those types of features. If you've looked at the portal for Teams, it might be a little bit different, but I just explore that really, really in depth for your organization and dive in there. But most of those 15% that are using Teams for voice, they're going to be smaller companies, and voice is not their main bread and butter. So you've got call centers, customer care groups, and you want to make sure they're always up and running. That's why the majority of those companies are using another UCaaS.
But I'm going to implement CCaaS, which is going to do all my home groups and all my call centers and all that. The second half is going to be just where the few plastic phones are still sitting on some of the people's desks.
Yep.
Most people use cell phones anyhow, right?
Yep.
They don't even use a office phone. But I do have those few that, you know, the admins and the execs and things like that. So it probably depends on the situation. It's probably the right situation.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about too is, do you need integration between the call center and your other business users? Some do, some don't. Do you ever need to transfer calls in and out? A lot of companies do, a lot of companies don't. So that's where really evaluating your particular use case is going to be extremely important. Or if your call center is taking all your calls and all your other business users, be it HR, back-end office workers, if they just need to chat between, you know, each other, they might not even be doing voice calls. They might just be doing MMS or chat or whatever that may be. So it's different for every company. Contact center is definitely where you get into how do you look at your ROI. Do you need your UCaaS contact center to be integrated? We're one of the only ones.
I have that at the end. Yeah.
We're one of the only ones that actually have a fully integrated backend solution, which typically lends to a better ROI rather than buying a UCaaS and contact center separately.
Yeah.
So these are all things that are really important to evaluate. So without knowing your exact scenario, it's sort of say which would make the most sense.
Yeah.
But it's my long-winded.
You guys have just mentioned UCaaS being integrated with the contact center. Is there any usability that ports into the embedded dialer app for people that are in the contact center, taking calls, things like that, just for ease of training across people? I don't want to have to teach people, well, to deal with these calls, you're going to have to do this. I just want, this is what we use, here's your embedded dialer, this is how you log in, get your calls, pauses, all that.
Yeah, I'll show you. I think it's like 3 more slides to go here from our contact center solution that we have as well. I was biting my tongue, but I also, from a cost perspective, yes, you do have Teams today, but now you're going to start getting into the adventure of, okay, how much does it cost additional from Microsoft to get to where I can have my dial tone? All right, so that's going to be, I already threw out $1 amount there, which SDs hate doing, but I couldn't help myself. But you're looking at usually $8 a user a month. That's just to get the dial pad on the user's interface with Teams. Now you take the next step and you start looking like, okay, how much do I need to pay for my dial tone at that point? And when you start comparing and doing apples to apples, it's pretty close to, I was going to say a wash, but I was going to say very similar in pricing. Okay? So direct routing, I have an EtherCAN presentation or demo here. It runs slightly longer. What you're going to see is call comes in. Now this time, remember this scenario. This is for when customers like yourselves, you are very adamant about staying 100% within the Teams user interface. You don't want to cross-launch any application like what I showed you previously. So I'll show you what that looks like here. It's pretty much just proven a point that, yeah, you know, we can be that back-end telephony engine, okay, and keep that 100% experience within the Teams environment. But after it plays out, and I'll go ahead and play it now, you're going to see me answer the call within the Teams desktop application. I think I briefly show some mid-call features. Yeah, we can mute. Yeah, we can hold, transfer, and conference. It's not really we. You're doing this via the Teams UI at this point. We're just providing that dial tone tunnel for you. And at this point, I'm almost selling Microsoft because I'm showing how you can move the call. That's a relatively more recent feature, I think, that Microsoft brought, where you can move the call from desktop to mobile. Okay? But as this plays out here, Some things that, for those who already use Teams, are familiar with this, that those do not use Teams, there's no interface up here when it comes to, can I text? Can I fax? All right, do I have any features where I can monitor, coach, join, barge in, all that kind of stuff? There is not. Okay, so once again, give and take. You know, you want to be 100% within the Teams user experience. Here's are some of the things that you would not get in that type of scenario. Now, don't get me wrong. There absolutely is customers that we encounter that come to us and say, I just want voicemail and I want dial tone and that's it. Absolutely, it's our job and any other UCaaS vendor's job in the industry is to dig a little bit deeper. You know, make sure you're not missing something or you don't want a oh shoot moment after the fact of deployment. All right, but where I take this to the next slide here, I'm going to go ahead and play this. This is a combination where you want to look at a vendor that can actually do both. Can they do direct routing? Here we go again. But can you also leverage embedded dialer as well for the user? All right, and with us at least, the answer is yes. Here's direct routing going on, kind of showing some voicemail. That's all handled by the Microsoft side in a direct routing solution. We eventually get to here. The big difference is to leverage at least our embedded dialer. Notice there's no dial pad here now. All right. We have the capabilities where we sense the user is enabled with direct routing, so we don't want to confuse the user. We don't want dial pads in two different places. All right, to be honest, we essentially learned from our own mistake 3 years ago when we first rolled this out. All right, users were seeing the dial pad in our embedded dialer, seeing the dial pad within Teams calling section, so we can now remove that. So you go to embedded dialer to handle your SMS, your MMS, your faxing. You want to look at some call recording capabilities, all right? So you can leverage both, all right? And by the way, this question comes up every so often. Are we all in for an organization where, you know, does everyone have to use direct routing or does everyone need to use embedded dialer? The answer is no. We can mix and match. To your point earlier, you were talking about some individuals who might not need certain things that others do. Not a problem, okay? Not a problem. How much time do I got left? I'm all right. We were just talking about contact center, okay? So this is, I mean, it sounds like he manages a contact center, right, in your organization?
Not really. I touch on it and provide back-end support.
Okay. Anyone else have a call center, contact center in their environment? Yes? Yes? Okay. You hit on it earlier. I mean, we are, plug here, you know, we provide pretty much the only solution in the industry from a cloud-based perspective. We're providing both the cloud phone system as well as the cloud contact center solution. RingCentral Contact Center, RingCentral MVP, that's our core product for PBX functionality. Since the topic of discussion here today is about Teams, I thought I'd throw this up there as well. So for the agent experience, we don't stop with just the basic, the basic phone system functionality. When you start getting into agent interface, we have it there as well. All right, so within here, also embedded within the Teams UI, we can do things and we can provide interfaces for those agents such as log in, log out, set disposition codes to address the outcome of the call, put myself in a make busy state because I'm going out to lunch, all right? Obviously, this is very important, like you said, to reduce app overload. All right, we don't need our agents toggling from the Teams interface to a second interface to my CRM interface. Let's try to keep it very easy so those agents can be as productive as they can be. Okay? So I believe this is my last slide here, but just wanted to put up some food for thought here. So for those who will eventually explore, what if I want to stay within Teams? We're all sold and we're all bought in on the messaging components of Teams, the video conferencing capabilities of Teams, but you're not all in. You want to explore telephone system and contact center options? Look at this stuff. All right. Do you need more feature functionality than just hold transfer conference? Do you need the reliability that a lot of UCaaS vendors provide? Us in particular. Okay. Security. We didn't touch on security. But absolutely, you definitely want to vet those UCaaS vendors and make sure that they can support your data is secure at rest. So either your voicemails, your faxes, or whether it's in transit, so your voice, all right, making sure that's secure. Compliance, I don't know. Obviously, we'd be here for another hour if I asked each one of you what appliances you need to adhere to. But for example, if you're in financial services, does that vendor checks the box for FINRA? If you're in healthcare, are you going to work with a UCaaS vendor who will comply with executing a business associate agreement or BAA so that you can be HIPAA compliant? Okay, you definitely want to check all that stuff. Okay. We talked about a couple of other things here, but another thing not to overlook. If you do require integrations into third-party databases, I'll just throw out a couple: Salesforce, NetSuite, Zendesk, ServiceNow, all right, even Microsoft Dynamics. I'll give Microsoft credit. They can integrate into Microsoft Dynamics to their Teams interface. But when you start looking at things like Salesforce, ServiceNow, Zendesk, Zoho is another one. They don't have these integrations. So once again, you don't want to be caught in the oh shoot moment when you decided to go with Teams and realize I can't do any integrations to maybe my CRM of choice. So just all I'm asking is vet it all out. Don't jump in quickly. Explore all the options. Okay? So I think that's what I had for my participation. It's a big secret. So I'm going to ask you, do you like blue or do you like green? Okay. Where do I live again? Arizona. All right. So you can have that. For anyone who can't accept gifts, these are very cheap, out of my own pocket. Your options are green or green. Did you see what it was?
Yes, and my daughter will get a thorough kick out of it.
That's the whole idea. And here we go. Hopefully it doesn't scare you. I believe, for those who don't see what that is, if you've ever been through the Phoenix airport, you might see the kiosk where they're selling scorpion suckers. So I think they freeze them, they chop off the little stinger at the bottom, and then they put them in a lollipop. Completely edible. So I heard. So I think we have like 7 minutes, Doug? Less? Okay, well, all that's going to be dependent upon, I know I went through a lot, and I went it rather quickly. And it is kind of odd standing up here trying to be vendor agnostic, if you will. Any questions you guys can think of? Okay. Any questions on this side of the room? Oh.
So we have a need for physical handsets in a lot of our settings.
Okay.
So we're healthcare, and they need to be able to pick up a phone and dial 911.
Yeah.
So what kind of options are out there for that?
Glad you brought that up, because it may come up with others. With our customers who choose direct routing, what we need to do is support what Microsoft calls, this industry is loaded with acronyms. They call it PID flow, PIDF/LO. Don't ask me what it stands for. It's a Microsoft term. But what that means is you are managing all of the emergency address information for all the users. All right? When you're looking at a UCaaS vendor, you need to make sure that they can support that information that's being sent from Microsoft to, say, someone like us, and that we will handle it and pass that information along to the PSAP or the 911 center. Okay? So, great question, because I know some do it and some don't. Some are late to the game, some were early on. All right? That goes back to the compliance bullet point that I had. All right? Two hot topics right now are things called Kerry's Law, which was actually, we already supported that long before it became a law, but that was the ability where you need to eliminate dialing a 9 before you dial 911. So we've been doing that all along. So we already checked that box. The other one was called Ray Bombs Act. And Ray Bombs needs to expand upon emergency services. Okay, so it's got to be more than just, here's my address, pass that along to the PSAP. Now you need to provide some additional information, such as we're on the 4th floor here today in the Mount whatever this is room. So we support that too. Okay?
Would be helpful because some of our facilities spread, and we need to know, are you going to suite A, suite B, suite C?
Yeah. And usually that's tied to the physical device.
Yes, and that
Okay. Now on the flip side though, if you're more mobile, if you're using your iPhone or whatever, or your soft phone on your laptop, you need to make sure, I mean, in a Teams world, if you're using direct routing, that's essentially on the Teams environment that you're managing, the Teams admin center, to configure it accordingly. But if you're using embedded dialer, which you know today, it launches our application, we manage that within the RingCentral administration. Okay, so every time someone, go ahead.
Hybrid, where you register the phone to RingCentral, you don't have to worry about any passing along 911 information. You do pneumatic 911, so even if they move in the building, follow that person to
Yep.
3rd floor in the back corner or whatever that may be. So you can run a hybrid environment where you have strictly phone users or what we call limited extensions where there's not a person tied to it. So you could register those not to Teams, so you don't have to do it one way. You can kind of change it up for whatever works.
That's a good point. Yeah, that makes sense of dynamic stuff, because usually that involves defining, as an administrator, you define an IP address range, maybe the 4th floor is on VLAN 4. So once your phone picks up that IP address, then nomadic is what we mean by automatically changing the address information. Good question. Wasn't prepared for that one. Yeah, makes sense. Anyone else? I'm out of them. $12 out of my own pocket. I was like, oh, man. All right, well, I think.
We're good. There's about a 10-minute break before the cyber session in the main ballroom, but give RingCentral a round of applause.
Thank you.